I'm your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey, everybody. We have fun. Hey, everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey, everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey, everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. So, Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey, everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey, everybody. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Hey, everybody. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Testing. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Right here. Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday night right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, coming to you from the UnMasked Studios. I'm back. I haven't been here for a while. They made me go fishing during the last show. It was rough. I had to fix a fishing boat, and then we had to go fishing. But it's been a great time, and it's a pleasure to be back here with you guys, and hopefully we're going to have some fun tonight. And got a great crew. Behind the scenes is always back there behind me. We've got Ernie, we got JW, and we got Bill Frog. Tim is not with us tonight. Unfortunately, Tim has got some other things he needed to do, but we've got Amir pitching in behind the camera. And you know what, Amir, we're going to bring you out front. Come out here and say hi to everybody. That way you can put a face with the camera action, because this guy steps in and he really does a good job of you picking up the slack. And just wave to everybody, Amir. Tell them hello.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. And he'll be right on the camera. And like I say, he does a great job. So tonight we're going to talk about amplifiers. What do all those buttons and switches do? So if you're a little confused about setting up an amplifier, you want to tune in, because we're going to have a lot of fun and we're going to dig into it really deep. So come back right after this short message and we'll be ready to go.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. Hey, we're gonna have a great show, but I gotta tell you what, a little nervous about tonight's show. The last show we had Bart and we had the legendary Wayne Harris. They put on an incredible show and it's gonna be a tough act to follow. I hope you guys got a chance to catch that show out. It was really a lot of fun, and we're hoping to get Wayne back on the show again, and maybe even with Bart. We get Bart behind his desk and out from, under an airplane or something like that. So we definitely had a good show last time we were up here, and hopefully we're going to do another really good show, but we're going to do a lot of hands-on tonight. But as always, if you like what you're seeing, hit the like and subscribe. Let your buddies know, hey, they do some really cool stuff Tuesday nights at 7:30 Central Time right there on the Kicker YouTube and Facebook channel. It's called UnMasked Live. So that's what we're here doing. And once again, if you guys have any suggestions, hey, you want to learn about this or about that, got a special guest you want to have on the show, please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to Bill Frog or even to support@kicker.com. We're always here to help you guys out. As always, I think we're going to give away some stuff tonight. We always do. So if Ernie will pull my laptop up, if you guys go to kicker.com/UMWeekly for Unmasked Weekly, you're going to see this page right here, and this is going to take you into the registering to win page. So if you guys are new to the show, here's where you register to win. The third prize winner, as always, is going to get the EB400, which are wireless earbuds. You're going to get a Unmasked koozie and an Unmasked t-shirt. The second prize winner is going to get a set of Tabor 2. These are Bluetooth wireless headphones, but they also come with wire, just in case you want to plug them in or you forget to charge them like I do occasionally. And, of course, you're going to get the koozie and the shirt. And the grand prize winner, while they're still in stock, yes, we still have a few left, you're going to get the Cush NCs, the noise-canceling headphones. And now that we've got them back in stock temporarily, I think I'm going to order myself a couple pairs of them so I have them ready. So once again, if you like the show, hit like and subscribe. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Andy, thanks for tuning in. We got Jimmy Lewis Jr. out there. We've got just a bunch of good people. So thanks for all your support. And my good friend Roddy Mason, from Ride Tech, he's always watching the show and having a good time. So thanks for joining us, guys. And let's kind of dig into this a little bit. Let's start talking about the main focus of the show, and that's amplifier adjustment. So amplifiers obviously amplify things, but they do several other things. In the past, amplifiers were just amplifiers. You sent signal in, they made the signal bigger, and it went out. That was all they did. Since the late 80s, early 90s, we started incorporating all kinds of other features, creature comforts, just added little features like crossovers and bass boost and DSP, more recently. But amplifiers still, their main focus is to amplify the sound that comes in. But we want to make sure that, with all these little creature adjustments and cool little functions, we get them set right and set properly. Because a proper setup amplifier is really the key to having a good sounding system and a safe system. If you set your amplifier up wrong, you could just end up wiping out your speakers. So first thing we want to talk about is going to be gain setting. Now, there's several different ways to set gains. There's the ear method, and just remember, your ears are probably about the worst thing you can use for setting up gain. Your ears are the least accurate and the least likely to tell you that there's distortion there before you damage something. So, in the past, we've always, set it up by ear, but there's a couple really good ways to do it. If you happen to have one of the SMD meters, the Steve Mee designs, the DMM1, I think it is, that is a great meter. It'll actually show you with a little red light when you get to clipping, setting up the gain. So that's a great way to do it. But if you don't have one of those, there's a couple other ways to do it. And we're going to show you those. We've got a setup up here on the table next to me. Of course, those guys that know the Kicker line really well, you're probably going to wonder, why are they've got KX amplifiers up there? I mean, weren't they discontinued about a year and a half ago? They were, but there's some really cool features on these two amplifiers, and that's why we have two amplifiers. There's so many features we couldn't pack them all into one. But we want to show you, a bunch of the functions that are out there, and these two amplifiers are a great representation of what you're going to need to know on how to set up the product. Also on the table up here in front of me, we got this oscilloscope, and it's also a voltmeter, so it's going to do two functions at the same time. So an oscilloscope is a really neat device. It's going to show you the waveform, and you can see the waveform on the oscilloscope right there. That's that little wavy up and down line, and that is called a sine wave. And that's what we're going to use to set up the gain on the amplifier with the oscilloscope. Now, with the oscilloscope, that's one way to do it, the sine wave. The other way to do it, and I'm going to have Ernie pull up the screen here again. I keep making him bounce back and forth. But Ernie, if you pull up this chart that I have on the computer right here, if you go to kicker.com, we've got an amplifier power chart that will tell you what your voltage is supposed to be. for what impedance. Now, you have to remember that this is assuming the amplifier is actually going to produce rated power. We all know there are amplifiers out on the market that are severely overrated. So once again, I'm going to show you, with the oscilloscope and with the voltmeter that we are really accurate about our power ratings. But once again, if you're not for sure if your amplifier really does the power, do not go by just the voltage. You'll definitely want to use the oscilloscope. And the reason I've got this Fluke oscilloscope up here is it does both functions at one time. So if we look at this little rated power in watts, we actually have a 1200 watt amplifier, the KXA 1200.1, and I've got a 2 ohm load. So if we go down, look at this chart, we go down 1200 watts, we go across here to 2 ohms, you're going to see we're looking for a peak-to-peak RMS voltage of 48.99. Well, that's close enough to 49 volts for me. But that's what we're going to want to set the voltage on the gain for the amplifier. So what we'll do to measure that, we're going to disconnect the speaker. Now, you don't have to disconnect the speakers, but it's going to be really loud if you don't. So you'll take the input for the scope. You've got the little test leads. You've got a little clip and a little alligator lead, and you're going to clip those onto the speaker outputs of the amplifier. This is going to read the voltage output on the amplifier, and we're going to play a sine wave, which is what you saw. That single waveform is one fixed frequency. And since we're doing a sub-amp for this demonstration, we're going to use 50 hertz. But you can download those from kicker.com under the support tab and go down to test tones. You're going to be able to load 50 hertz, 1K, pink noise, setup tones for the key lock, setup tones for the key 500.1. So everything you really need to set up our equipment is right there. And in fact, you can use the test tones and the pink noise for just about anything else. And in fact, the pink noise, if I remember it, it is 30 minutes long. So it is a long pink noise track. So what we want to do is we want to adjust the gain of the amplifier so it's going to reach clipping at about 3/4 volume. The reason we do 3/4 volume and not full volume, some CDs are recorded a little bit quieter than others. So there is big variance on the output level. So we want to give you a little bit of room. So that does mean that if you turn the radio up too far with a hot recorded or a loud recorded CD, you can still damage your speakers. That's where your ears come in. It's like, hey, that just doesn't sound right anymore. That's when you need to back it off. So we're going to take the radio, in this case, over here on my right side, which is on your left side. We've got the KMC2, which was one of our marine media centers, and it just happens to be the unit that was already hooked up in the display that I grabbed out of the back, which we used for another demonstration purpose. And the 2 amplifiers were already there, so I didn't have to do a lot to set up other than hook up a lot of gear and set up a lot of, basically instructions on how to do this. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to this head unit. We're going to play 50 hertz, which we downloaded from kicker.com. And there's actually 3 different 50 hertz tracks. There's a 50 hertz at 0 dB, a 50 hertz at -5 dB, and a 50 hertz at -10 dB. Well, why would I want to use one or the other? Well, we're going to show you that and what the difference means on the oscilloscope and for setting up gains. So let's go around the table here, and we're going to go ahead and take the KMC2. We're going to go ahead and play a flash drive that's got our 50 hertz test tone, which is track 2. And I'm going to take this radio, and I'm going to wind this radio up to about 30. Now, the radio does go up to 40 on the volume control, so we're going to go up to 30 on the volume control. Therefore, I know that this is not clipping. And I've already measured the output of the radio. I know it doesn't clip at 30 on the volume control. So if we look at the oscilloscope right here, what you see is 14.4 volts. So even with the gain all the way down, this amplifier still got some output. I mean, that's typical of an amplifier. With our gains all the way down, they do not completely shut off the output. So the gain is not a volume control. It is a matching device. So we've got 14.4 volts. Now, what's really interesting, as I talked about the different levels, the pink, or actually the sine wave at 0 dB, the sine wave at -5, and the sine wave at -10. Ernie, go ahead and focus back here on the oscilloscope real quick. So let's go back and look at 0 dB, as I mentioned. That's 14.5 volts. If I go to the -5 dB, look what happens to the voltage when the track starts to play. 7.95, almost half of the voltage. We've dropped 5 dB in output, therefore the level has dropped. If I go to the next track, which is -10 dB, it now dropped to 4.47. So once again, it's going to drop a little bit over half the voltage every time. The reason that's important with a subwoofer amplifier, you don't hear the distortion, and subwoofers are actually a lot more able to handle distortion. So it is acceptable to have a little bit of distortion in the subwoofers, and we like bass. We like the bass a little bit louder. So by using the -5 or -10 dB to set the gain on the subwoofer amplifier only, you're going to turn that gain up a little bit louder to get the same output, which means you're going to have a little bit more bass response. It's going to have a little bit more kick to it. But we're going to go back to the 0 dB for this demonstration. So what I'm looking for, as I mentioned, we said we want to go to 48.99 volts, or 49 volts, which is going to be close enough. So we go to the gain control, which is the very first control on the amplifier, and it's always set in the minimum position. You always want to start with the gain on the amplifier in the minimum position. You want to run as much voltage into the amplifier as possible, and that's got something to do with called signal to noise. And we won't get in really deep in detail on that. We'll do that on another show. But the less the amplifier has to amplify the signal, the less it amplifies the distortion and the clipping. So always set your radio to 3/4 volume and set the amplifier to the minimum gain position. And I keep resetting this track too, because I'm not sure how long the track is. I forgot to measure it. But what I'm going to do, go ahead, Ernie, and pull up the oscilloscope once again. I'm going to start turning up the gain adjustment on the amplifier. And as I turn the gain, you see the voltage, which is the output, increasing. You see the sine wave getting bigger. So I said the magic number we want to look for is 48.99, and that's pretty close right there. This is showing 46.9. We're at exactly 50 hertz. And if you notice, that signal is not clipped. We don't have any flat spots on the top or bottom. That's how you use the oscilloscope to check for clipping. And the voltage, if you know your amplifier's rated voltage, that's how you'll set it. Well, let's kind of see where this amplifier clips, because the kicker amplifiers are usually a little bit underrated. So if I turn this up a little bit farther, there's where the light came on. So if you notice on the amplifier, on the KX amplifiers and the KXMA, which are still our current marine amplifiers, when you get to 1% clipping on the input, the gain control will illuminate. And if you look at the oscilloscope, you see the little flat spots just start to appear right here and here. And if I want to know how much wattage that really is, in fact, why don't we just do that? Not to get too many math formulas in here, but to figure out how much power you actually have, you're going to take that voltage squared. So let's go to the calculator function on the phone. Let's take 55.3 times 55.3. And then we're going to take that and we're going to divide that by the impedance. And this is a 2 ohm load, so divide it by 2. That gives me, if you can see this, 1,529 watts of output from this amplifier, right at about 1% clipping. And that's a 1,200 watt amplifier. So it does a pretty good job. Now, the SMD meters will actually give you, the duty factor and, the percentage of load that it's actually going to be working against. With an active load like a speaker, you're going to have a little bit of pushback, and the speed meters will actually show you that. But as you notice, I backed that off, so I've got no clipping, down to 50.5 volts. Let's go ahead and turn this up and show you what clipping really looks like. I don't have a speaker hooked up, so I don't have to worry about damaging it. But as you notice, those flat spots, that is clipping, that is distortion. We don't want to see those. And hey, it looks like I got a lot more output. But if you notice, this never got any louder right here. So go back and turn it down again. It still stays pretty close. You're really not getting much louder, but you are inducing a whole lot of DC current, which is going to be heat to the speaker. So that is a great way to set gain controls with an oscilloscope, or like I say, if you know the voltage, or the wattage of the amplifier. If this was going to be hooked up to a 4 ohm load, we would take that 55 squared divided by 4 ohms. That would tell you what voltage we'd need to set it at. In fact, if we go back over to the chart, which, if Ernie, you pull up the laptop again real quick. So if we were going to set up that 1,200 watt amplifier, and we're going to do it at 4 ohms, you see the voltage would be 69.28. Now that sounds kind of, backwards. Why would the voltage be higher at a higher impedance? That's because of the current of the amplifier and how the power supplies work. But once again, if we're going to set this up for a 4 ohm load, we'd want to set that at 69 volts. So great way to set up amplifiers and real easy way to tune it. And of course, that's a subwoofer amplifier. The mid-high amplifiers do it exactly the same way. So other controls in the amplifier, we're going to take this and we're going to turn this radio down just a little bit. In fact, we're going to go all the way down because we're going to start this one from scratch. The next function we have is called a subsonic filter. So what I want to do with the subsonic filter is I'm going to go to the radio and I'm going to play our pink noise track, which pink noise is equal amounts of all frequencies. It's almost like a flat line response, whereas like a sine wave will just have one bar on an RTA. Now the RTA is called the real-time analyzer. It measures output at all frequencies. So every frequency band, it'll tell you how loud each of those frequency bands is. And ideally, with pink noise, which is a flat response, you want to measure pretty much a flat response. So we got the radio turned all the way down. I'm going to go to another function. I'm going to switch over to my RTA function on my laptop. And once again, there's a lot of different ways to do this with free laptop or free RTA apps. So we're going to take the leads and we're going to connect it to the output. And once again, I am not going to connect the speakers to this for this demonstration. I'm going to do this quiet so you guys don't have to listen to the subwoofer play really loud. So now that I'm playing pink noise, which I thought I was playing pink noise, it actually switched to a different track. Oh, you got to like it when there it is. All right, Ernie, go ahead and turn on the RTA. So if you guys look at the frequency response on the RTA, if Ernie will pull up the laptop, there we go. So, and I'm going to set the frequency here. I'm going to go ahead and limit this frequency down for the low limit, because we don't need to go to 20K. And I'm going to set a few more bars on the resolution. And actually, probably a 24th octave is a little bit overkill. So what we've got here is we've got the output of the amplifier. And if you notice, from pretty much down to 20 all the way up here to around 200 or so, it's pretty flat in the frequency response. And our subwoofer amplifiers do not pass full range signal. That is normal. But what I want to do is I want to show you what happens when you adjust some of the functions on the crossover. Let's go ahead and bump this up to 6 octave. And if you want to do a picture-in-picture for me, Ernie. Why don't you go ahead and pull up the amplifier so they can see what I'm adjusting and how I'm adjusting it. So we're going to go to the next control on the amplifier, which is a subsonic filter. Now, a subsonic filter is a high-pass crossover at a very low frequency. Really low frequencies will damage speakers in an infinite baffle or a ported enclosure, because below the tuning frequency of the ported enclosure, you lose all cone control. So what I'm really worried about is if you look pretty much right where my hand is, let's see if I can figure out which way to do this here. This low frequency on the left side of the screen, how flat that is. Let's start turning up the subsonic filter, and you'll slowly watch that start to go away. So now I have kind of a mountain there. I've got a signal that kind of comes up and down, and that's pretty not what we want from a subwoofer amplifier. So that's showing you, if you cut out too much of the low frequencies, what it's going to look like on the oscilloscope. And we're going to play these for you when we're done showing you all the adjustments and let you hear what each of these adjustments do. So once again, no subsonic filter. And if we set the subsonic filter clear up to 80 hertz, that means pretty much 80 and down is going to get rolled off at 24 dB per octave. We don't get a lot of bass response output, and this is a subwoofer amp. So the next thing we want to talk about, is I just bumped the gain control, but that's all right. We're not pushing it to clipping. So let's go ahead and turn that subsonic filter back down so we go back to that more or less flat frequency response. The next crossover is the low pass crossover, and that's what's going to take the mid and high frequencies out of your subwoofer. It's going to take the vocals out. So as I turn this control clockwise, it's going to give me all the frequencies the amplifier can produce. As I turn it counterclockwise, if you watch the right side of that spectrum analyzer, the RTA, you see that start to roll off. And what we're doing is we're limiting the mid and high frequencies from going to the speaker. If I go all the way down, this goes down to 40 hertz, it's only going to play the really, really low frequencies. And what this means audibly, if you have the low pass crossover at too low of a frequency, you still get all the low bass, but you don't get any of the punch, any of the impact. Kind of like with the Subsonic filter, the first one we showed you, if you set it at too high of a frequency, you don't get the really low bass, but at some point that really low bass becomes damaging. So you want to make sure the Subsonic filter is set as low as it can possibly be set without damaging the speakers. And then the low pass crossover is merely a function of whatever sounds good to you. There is no right or wrong. Chances are, I mean, it's very slight chance that you'll damage a speaker by setting this control wrong, because all it does really is limit more frequencies. So let's go back, Ernie, one more time to the RTA. Let's go ahead and turn the gain back up a little bit. So now as I turn that low frequency crossover, the low pass output up in frequency, you see how all those frequencies come back up, and that's clear out to almost 200 hertz. So ideally, I like to set my subwoofer crossover to start off with somewhere about 80 hertz, somewhere in that area, right about there, which that's kind of a good place to start. Any higher than that, it starts to sound hollow. You start to get vocals through the woofer. Any lower than that, and you really start to loosen some of that punch, some of that impact. So that's, the two main controls on an amplifier, especially a subwoofer amplifier. You have a high pass crossover and you have a low pass crossover, and they are very important to make sure they are set up correctly. The other functions on this amplifier are bass boost. Now, you guys have heard me say this in the past. If you've ever been to one of my trainings, I stress to you how much I hate bass boost. It really is a frustrating function, because it's something that we've been told for a long time. Hey, you have to have bass boost on your amplifiers. If you don't set the amplifier up correctly, that is going to be the control that you damage the speakers with. Every time you increase the bass boost, and this amplifier has up to 18 dB of bass boost, every time you give the amplifier 3 dB more of bass boost, you're asking the amplifier to double its power. So if I have an amplifier and I set the gain so it's got a maximum output of 300 watts, and I go to this bass boost and I crank it up just 3 dB more, which is the smallest amount you can hear the difference in. I mean, it's very small, but it is 3 dB more. That takes twice the power. So from that 300 watts, we've now asked the amplifier to produce 600 watts. If you go to 6 dB boost, you're going to double that 600 watts again. Now you're asking it to do 1200 watts. You go to 9 dB boost, well, we're up 2400. You go to 12 dB boost, 4800. 15 dB boost, 9600. And at 18 dB of bass boost, you're asking that 300 watt amplifier to produce 18,200 watts of power, and it is not going to do that. So these controls are very important to set them up correctly. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you there's 3 different controls on this amplifier. We have a amount of boost. It's like a gain. How much boost do I want? We've got a bandwidth section, which tells me how many frequencies on either side of that it adjusts. And you've also got a frequency adjustment that moves that whole control up and down. So this can really make a big difference in making or breaking the quality of bass response you get in your audio system. And if you really set it up wrong, you're going to end up launching some speakers, along the way. So let's go back to the RTA. Hopefully it hasn't fallen asleep, and it has not. So we're going to take this bass boost and we're going to turn it up to the highest frequency, which is going to be on this particular amplifier. We're going to put it at 80 hertz. And just to make this really obnoxious, we don't have the volume turned up really loud. I'm going to go ahead and set the crossover, just so we can see maximum, to its highest frequency. There we go. So as I turn this bass boost up, you see that nice flat response. You see that big peak right there. So what I've done is I've boosted the output at those frequencies. And since the amplifier, the gain is not turned up very loud and the radio is not turned up very loud, this is not going to damage the output, but that one frequency is going to be really loud at that particular frequency. So if I go to the frequency itself on this particular amplifier, I can adjust it. As I turn it down, you watch that peak shift down the scale. So that's telling me where I want the boost. And all the way down pretty much is just almost a subsonic bass boost. As I go back up, you see that little wave start to follow. It goes up in frequency to about 80 hertz is the highest that it will boost. Now, the bandwidth, or the Q they call it, Q for the quality of the signal, adjust how wide that peak is. I'll get down here by the meter, how wide that peak goes from top to bottom. So right now, we've got the Q set basically all the way up, which is pretty wide, but as I start to narrow it out, actually the other way, sorry, I turned it the wrong way. So as you look, now we've got this big arc going across the amplifier. So it's almost like a bass boost at that point. It isn't really affecting one specific frequency, it's affecting a lot. So as I go to a lower Q number, it actually has a narrower bandwidth. So as I adjust this, and once again, you can do several different things with it. Let's go back and bring that back to a peak. So it really does give you the ability to tune your peak bass note exactly where you want. So now we see what these controls do. I'm going to disconnect the oscilloscope because the oscilloscope function that I have will not accept a 1200 watt input. So I don't want to burn up any of the test equipment. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to unplug the RTA from this amplifier. We're going to go back over to the track we had before, that 50 hertz. And we're going to go back and set the gain with the radio up at 30 on the volume. So right about there. So we got 53 volts of output. And if you want to know, once again, how much wattage that is, 53 squared divided by 2 ohms. But if I look at the frequency response, the little sine wave on the meter, it's a nice, clean sine wave. But if I go down here to the center frequency, and I'm going to turn the center frequency to about 40 hertz. I'm going to guess where that is. I'm going to start to boost this. If you watch what happens to that signal, I didn't boost it very much at all. In fact, touching this at any point after you set the gain to maximum is going to cause clipping. And here again, with bass boost, if you set it up wrong, that is almost pure 100% square wave. Your speakers are not going to last with that going through them. So if you want to do this correctly, you would set the bass boost, by ear where you want it. Then I would have to go back and turn the gain down on the amplifier. There we are, right about 53 volts once again. So I had to go back and turn the gain down to make sure I didn't clip 40 hertz specifically. And that's something that's really interesting. You talk about setting up an amplifier with a 40 hertz tone or a 1K tone if it's a mid and high frequency amplifier. We found that, it's very common that certain radios or amplifiers will clip more at one frequency or the other. That's why with a DSP, especially like our Key Lock or, the Key 501 or the 200.4, it's very important you do not have any clip signal, any flatline response, because a DSP does not know how to react to a clip signal. So even though you set this up at 40 hertz or 50 hertz and it's not clipping, what if it clips at 3K or 4K or 8K? Well, once again, the DSP is going to get that signal coming in. Even though the subwoofer amplifier isn't producing 3, 4, or 8K, the signal's coming into the amplifier, it's coming into the DSP. That is going to cause it to fail its setup. So that's why we always tell you, you have to run our setup files with our DSP, which when you're doing the gain match, it's a sweep up and down from 20 to 20K. That ensures that the input going into the DSP is not clipped at any frequency, and that's why we always tell you, wait 10 seconds and watch for that clip light to make sure it does not come on, because if that clip light comes on at all, the DSP is going to fail the setup. So that's the setup on a subwoofer amplifier. It's not too complicated, but once again, you really need to set it up correctly if you want to ensure, long life of your speakers. So I'm going to drop around behind the scenes back here. We're going to go to another amplifier. We're going to switch the input. Actually, I'm going to turn the volume down so I don't get a ton of output. I always turn the volume down in between steps. So now we're going to switch over to the 400.2, and I'm going to go to my RTA, and I need to set my scale back to 20 to 20K. And now I need to play pink noise. All right. Ernie, why don't you go ahead and pull up the RTA once again. So here we've got the flat response. You notice the left side is at 20 hertz, the right side is at 20K. It's a pretty good flat response. If you notice, the high frequencies do have a little bit of a climb to them. Like I say, that's okay. That doesn't have to be ruler line flat. You just don't want a lot of really high dips and valleys, but this will give you a pretty good idea what's going on. So with the 400.2, and what I've done is I've taken actually the door off the 1200.1 so it doesn't get in the way of the camera. But we would do the same thing with the gain control, set it up. But I have this amplifier set in full range, so the crossover is essentially off. With a lot of amplifiers, you do have a switch that may say off, high pass, low pass, or BP, which stands for band pass. So the first setting is going to be on this amplifier, high pass. So this would be what I would want to use for a set of components or mid-ranges where you don't want the bass going to those smaller speakers. So we now go to our high pass frequency, and I start to turn that high pass frequency up. And if you notice what's happening to the left side of the RTA response, we're starting to lose all those low frequencies. Now, on the subwoofer, too much high frequency is going to make them sound muddy and hollow. Not enough, you don't get any punch or attack. With a mid-range, if I set this crossover at too high of a frequency, I lose all the lower vocals. I lose all the mid-bass. It sounds like there's a huge hole in the middle of your audio system. If you have it set at too low of a frequency, I may be getting too much bass into those smaller speakers. Now, there is no set, one bullet cures everything. It's going to depend on how loud you play your music, what type of music it is, and once again, the speaker size and their power handling. So the good rule of thumb is go ahead and turn the crossover frequency up to a high frequency like we had before, and then as you're listening to your favorite track at the maximum volume you want it to be playing at, start turning the crossover point down on that amplifier to get more of the lower frequencies. But when you hear the speakers start to pop or snap or audibly break up, that's how you know you've reached your limit. And if that was our limit, we want to go back to this and just bring that frequency up just a little bit more. If I can find there we are. So bring that up just a little bit higher. And you would adjust that to take out that distortion that you hear from the speaker from trying to move too much or it actually bottoming out. So that's a really cool feature. Now, let's go ahead and leave that crossover set at exactly the same spot. Let's go to the next function, which this is called band pass. So with the band pass, this is the low pass. So in low pass mode, it works exactly like the subwoofer amplifier. So here again, you can get a lot of the frequencies, so you can use this amplifier as a subwoofer amplifier. It just doesn't have that bass boost and that bass EQ. But it does work very well as a subwoofer amplifier if you needed a 400 watt 2-channel stereo subwoofer amplifier. Now, that is the high pass function. It's also got something else kind of interesting, which is going to be a ×10 switch. Not all amplifiers have a ×10 switch. So right now, the low pass frequency is set at 500 hertz. So if I look at that frequency response and that RTA just to the right of where you see the oscilloscope, it's starting to roll off at about 500 hertz. With the ×10 setting, I can flip this switch on, and what it's going to do is it's going to give you ×10, so that means that crossover point is at 5K right now. So it will allow you to change the crossover point to give you a band pass output for a mid-range. So if I go ahead and switch to band pass now, if you notice the low frequencies are going away to where we had them set before. So you notice that little plateau. So now I have a high pass and a low pass. So once again, here's the low pass adjustment. I can take some of those higher frequencies out of it, which might be, damaging to, the audio quality, and I can go down here to the low pass, and I can change its crossover point as well. So this is what the adjustments will do for you as far as the high pass and low pass and on a band pass. And in fact, if you turn them both too far together, you basically start limiting the output of the amplifier, and it basically almost becomes a one-note wonder. So here again, you can definitely set the amplifier up incorrectly. So once again, let's go back over here to high pass. Let's go ahead and take this switch. So if I've got a setting here, once again, you can adjust that to be almost full range, or with that times 10 setting off. It really does give you a good flat frequency response. So, and this amplifier also has the kick EQ, which is basically like a bass boost. So the kick EQ is a bass boost. So if I turn that up, you notice you're going to get a little bit of a bump in the bass response. But the same thing, for every 3 dB I turn that up, I'm asking the amplifier to effectively double its power every 3 dB higher. So once again, that control is there. I strongly encourage you to use that only as a last resort. So amplifiers are not difficult to set up. In fact, they're pretty simple, but a lot of it can be done with your ears, but some of it, to set them up really properly, need to be done with some type of test tool. Either an oscilloscope, or like I say, the DD1, which will actually show you what this light does on the amplifier. It's going to show you about 1% clipping on the input. So great tools to use for the setup process. And once again, don't forget, when you're using the test tones, we actually give you 3 different levels of test tones. We give you the 0 dB, the -5, and the -10. So if you guys have any questions, as always, feel free to pop those up on the chat box, and Jeremy will throw those up at me if there's anything you want to see, or on the meters or on the scopes. But what does all this mean to me as a listener, as a user? How does it sound? So what we're going to do right now, we're going to actually play some music for you. And I got to remember how we did this, set this up. We did this with the phone, didn't we, Bill? So I'm going to Bluetooth, and I don't recommend Bluetooth for setting, up. I was doing everything off of a flash drive, but we're going to set the amplifier into Bluetooth mode, and it's in pause. And I'm going to go back and hopefully find that track that we were listening to earlier. I have too many things opened up on my phone. All right. So this is royalty-free music. This may not be the music that everyone chooses to listen to, but you're going to get an idea of what it sounds like. So we go down here to play. We turn the volume up. And this thing is so small, it's so hard to read. Oh, the joys of live TV. All right. I think we're on play. So I'm going to start turning the volume up just a little bit. And guess what? Ernie, it doesn't like it. All right, it's just, oh, that is funny. You're right. So I'm going to turn this all the way down. If you guys think back to what I said before, anything can happen in live TV. What did I do before we started tuning the gains? Is I unplugged all the speakers. So it's no wonder we can't hear it. That's one of those rookie mistakes once again. So we're going to go ahead and plug the speakers in so you can actually hear what everything sounds like. And we're going to assume that I had gone through and set all the gains on the amplifier. And we're going to ignore the oscilloscope and the voltage. We're just going to listen to sound right now. So if I go back, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust the subwoofer so it's playing as wide a bandwidth as possible. And hopefully this is coming through okay through the microphone. Take the subsonic filter, and as I turn the subsonic filter up, you're going to hear all the low bass response start to go away. Hopefully you have headphones on or good speakers, but we pretty much blocked everything from 80 hertz and down. As I turn that subsonic back, we gain all that back. Same thing if I go to the high pass crossover, or low pass crossover. What I've done is I've changed the sound completely. So I like setting, the low pass crossover about 80 hertz or so. If it's set too high of a frequency, it starts to sound hollow. You start to hear voices through it. In fact, let's just unplug the mid and high frequencies, and let's just play the subwoofer only. So I'm not sure if you can hear the rumble, but as I take this low pass crossover and I turn it too high, I'm starting to hear some vocals out of the subwoofer. Turn that crossover down, I've lost all the vocals. I don't have to listen to that anymore. If I go too low, I don't have any attack, any punch for the drums, any kick. So it makes a pretty big difference. And like I told you, I like to start about 80 hertz or so, just right before you start to hear a little bit of vocals, so probably somewhere in there. So that's why it's really important to set the subwoofer up correctly. Once again, if I turn the frequency too high on the subsonic filter, I lose all the really, really deep low bass, which I'm sure your microphone, or our microphones, are probably not picking that up. So those are the adjustments on the subwoofer. Let's turn the volume down just a little bit so we don't blow you guys away. Let's go ahead and hook up the other speaker. And let's start playing with the output of the 402. Now, it's set for full range right now. In fact, let's unplug the subwoofer. So that's set on full range. And once again, if the speakers aren't bottoming out and you don't have a subwoofer, you'd want it set for full range. But let's go to the next setting, which is high pass. So if I set it too high of a frequency, if you listen, very hollow. There's no depth, no warmth. Turn that frequency down to about 80 hertz again. That guitar comes back. So by not setting these controls up correctly, you can actually completely eliminate instruments. You're missing a lot of the music. So once again, I like to set that crossover as low as I can without damage to the speakers. And if you go to times 10 on once again, you can really cut basically all the high frequencies out of these speakers. And once again, that'd be great for a mid-range. So if I don't want the high frequencies coming out of mid, because I have a separate amplification for the tweeter, and then in that times 10 position, that's crossing clear down to 500 hertz. So I'm really losing, actually it's down to 40 hertz. So it's very important to set the controls up on the amplifier properly. So let's go back to low pass. And here again, set it at a really, really low frequency. We're not getting a lot out of these speakers. So let's go ahead and go back. Let's set it up correctly. I'm going to set this to high pass. I'm going to connect the subwoofer back up. Now from where I'm standing, sounds pretty darn good. But let's see what happens when I take the high pass crossover and I set it at too high of a frequency on the mid-range. I still have all the deep bass, I still have the cymbals and the high frequencies. I've lost the middle of that music, so there's a big gap in the sound. Bring that back in. So proper setup of the amplifier is essential to good sound, good staging, and obviously it's going to be very important to make sure that you do not damage the speaker, especially when you're dealing with an amplifier that's going to do 1,500 watts on a single subwoofer that's rated at 700 watts. But if it's clean power, it should take it for quite a long time. So I'm going to open this up to any questions before we go any further. Jeremy, do I have anybody asking any good questions? When are you going to have any bigger speaker wire than 12 gauge? You know, we offer 8 gauge rolls of blue and gray. In fact, in a lot of our high-end installs, high-power installs, I just use our power wire. It's equally as good as the speaker wire. So essentially, you know, you have to buy it, you know, in separate runs, but we have all the way up to 1/aught speaker wire. You just have to buy the blue and the gray. So yes, 12 gauge is actually plenty acceptable for subwoofers. I mean, even when you're talking, you know, a couple thousand watts of power, because you're not running it for a really long distance. So you're not going to hear a difference in the speaker wire. And once again, 16 gauge is what we offer for the mid and high frequencies. It's more than adequate to carry all the power you're going to need, especially for the, you know, the 10 or 15 feet that it has to run. So not a huge deal. So living loud with Andy, when setting by math method of AC volts of amp, could that be limiting the amplifier since impedance rise is ever changing with the reactive load? Yes, we did not do this with the speaker connected. We did this solely with the output of the amplifier. So what's going to happen as the impedance rises, if you set it up with the voltage, if you get a higher impedance due to impedance rise from a subwoofer enclosure, you're just going to get less output at that frequency. So yes, it does have a big effect on it. That's why the AM-M1 from Steve Mead Designs, that is a great meter to measure where your impedance rise is and your actual duty cycle and power output of the amplifier at that frequency, because that's going to tell you the output of the amplifier combined with the reactive load of a moving speaker, which is its own electric, you know, energy source. It's going to change the output. So once again, all this stuff works together. There is no one area that, you know, you just concentrate on that. You can ignore everything else. Everything affects everything else. Just like I say in car audio, there's always give and take. You want more of this, you're going to take away from something. So that's going to happen every time. So great question. Should crossover set prior before gain setting? I've always done the gain, then the crossovers. Yeah, actually, that's a great way to do it. So here again, it's going to depend on how loud you set, or you know, what frequency and how loud you're going to play it. If you set the gain before the crossovers, as you turn it up, you can adjust the crossover point to the point where it's going to not bottom the speakers out. By the same token, if you know that you got a flat frequency response, I'm really looking for an SQ vehicle. I want that flat frequency response. So I go ahead and set all the crossover points. I set the overlap so I have a flat frequency response. Now what you want to do is you want to start turning the gains up on the amplifiers until they clip where it's sitting there, or you hear the speakers start to bottom out. So there is no right or wrong way to do it. It is much easier to go ahead and set the gain first and then go back and set the crossovers. But occasionally you do have to go back and adjust the gain a little bit if you want, especially if you don't have, if you're not playing as much of the low frequencies as you thought you were going to and you want it louder, you can turn the crossover point up higher and then you can turn the gain up a little bit more. So it really affects everything, what you've done. So more great questions. So Larry Keller. Okay, but when you DSP a system, you're boosting all the frequencies that are deficient. The boost from the DSP would eat up your clean power, trying to reproduce the sounds, then maybe the speakers can't. Yes, and that is something else that's really important to understand is when you're doing a DSP setup, sometimes you have to run the DSP first, set that up, so especially with a microphone like the Key 200.4, is it will boost some frequencies. Now with the 200.4, it will cut frequencies first. So if you've got some frequencies that are louder, it's going to try to cut those so they don't have to boost anything else. But if your DSP is going to boost certain frequencies, that is going to affect where the amplifier clips. So yes, the DSP does have effect on it. So once again, everything kind of works together. And it like I say, it's a lot of fun, and it's always a challenge to set up a system. And I love tuning systems because it's never the same thing twice. You mix and match the vehicle or any type of equipment, and it's a whole new system, and it's a whole new challenge. But the key is make it sound the way you want it when it's done, and there is no right or wrong as far as sound quality goes. Brian says recommended initial low pass setting for a single subwoofer with the CXA 400 amp. Yes, like I said, I recommend starting at about 80 hertz, which is, almost, with that line kind of flat with a needle pointing straight up. That's a great place to start. Now, with the low pass crossover, you're never going to really affect the stability of the speaker. You're going to affect the sound. So setting it too high of a frequency, you get too many vocals, it sounds kind of hollow. Setting it too low of a frequency, you start to lose that mid-bass punch. But start right in the middle with the low pass on any of the subwoofer amplifiers, and it doesn't matter if it's ours or another brand. They will basically start at the same point. You can tune that up or down at will. So Jimmy Lewis Jr. says, without an RTA, how do you set the crossover to CXA 0.1? It goes from 50 to 200, but no JJ beefs in. All right. So once again, what I recommend doing is setting that crossover flat, with the needle pointing up with that little line at the center. And you don't have to have an RTA to set a crossover. As I mentioned, you can tune that up or down. It's all done by ear. We were using the RTA so you could see what the crossover does, how it moves that frequency up and down. But when it comes to sound quality, it really doesn't matter. It's whatever sounds good to you. And different speakers are going to require a different crossover point. Like I say, a smaller subwoofer is going to require a higher subsonic filter, but it may be able to play a higher frequency altogether before it starts to break up or distort. Whereas a very large speaker, like a 15 or an 18-inch sub, you might want to cross that over really low, like maybe 50 or 60 hertz. But when you do that, then you're probably going to want to add some type of mid-bass because the mid-range isn't going to play down to 50 or 60 hertz. So that's how you start figuring out with system design and tuning how you might need to add more speakers and more amplifiers later to get the sound you're looking for. And I always like a really good mid-bass, which is one of the hardest things to get in a car, to get plenty of it. So one more question. Would it be a better idea to set your box tuning frequency where the speaker is moving least in a ported box, most of the time at the lowest ohm load? Here again, it doesn't matter as far as that high pass crossover goes. In the ported box, it does have the most output at the tuning frequency, which is where the speaker moves the least. But once again, if you set it at set the crossover at that frequency, you're going to lose a lot of the upper frequencies as well. So it's all a matter of sound. It's whatever sounds good. When it comes to low pass crossover in a subwoofer, you can't go wrong mechanically. You can only go wrong audibly. Does it sound good or does it not sound good? So great. So, I got a little note. That was awful nice. See, that Amir said a water up there for me. I didn't even know he did it. So thank you, Amir. See, that's why we bring him around here. He's good to have around. He like looks out for the rest of us. So hope you guys had some fun with this. And like I say, hope we didn't take up too much time. If you have questions or you don't want to see this again, play it back. But it's all about practicing and experimenting. If you've got a system, with my car, I'm getting ready to just do something totally bizarre. I mean, absolutely love the way it sounds, but I like a challenge and, to keep in practice because, just like anything else, with the skill, if you don't use it, you lose it. Here in the next couple weeks, I have plans to totally wipe out all the equalization crossover points and start all over again and just change everything because you never know. Might find something you like better because there is no right or wrong. So, Rob Sanchez says, please confirm Solex release date. Well, it's coming. In fact, it's getting closer. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So that being said, let's look at my notes here real quick to make sure we haven't forgotten anything. We've done all the listening. We've done all the actual viewing on how to set everything. So let's go to a quick break. Then we'll come back with the rest of the show and probably give away some stuff. So see you back here in a couple minutes.
Something about your hands on the wheel, got a sexy touch. It's enough to make me and my Chevy blush. Oh Lord, take it on, off that highway, turn me on, not let you drive, baby. You can take it fast as you want to. Girl, little dirty looks damn good on you. Start me up, Stones on the radio. Girl, I love it when you let go. Don't waste your way in the wrong way. Get off on some 4x4 play.
And we're back. Thank you guys for hanging out, and thanks again to Amir for bringing me the bottle of water. I definitely needed that and did a lot of talking before. And I apologize if I talked too quick for a lot of you guys, but if you guys have any questions at all, always remember support@kicker.com. If you have any questions whatsoever, go ahead and send an email to the guys. We've got 4 guys up there that are absolutely fantastic at answering questions. And the cool thing about it is if they don't have the answer, all our engineers are right here in the same building. So we can go to the people that design the product. As we mentioned, all the Kicker products are designed right here in-house. So, got questions, got, things you need to, figure out, or, suggestions for, what works with what, go ahead and email us at support@kicker.com. We got a lot of cool things going on, a lot of events going on, and if you, oh, wait a minute, we got an intruder here. Chris, what are you doing, Chris?
I don't know.
I suppose. See, I wasn't even ready for that, so by gosh. We got Christopher Pate in the house. What's happening, Mr. MTI?
It's trouble. SEMA, getting ready, building cars for SEMA, and that's pretty much all we do is this time of year is drink Red Bull and build cars.
Oh, I know. I remember those days. I remember putting together the trailers heading to SEMA. So very cool.
Yeah.
So how many cars you got going to SEMA?
It's that time of year where everything's crazy. So just building cars. So
how many?
And then
cars
starting,
have you got going
we
to
have
SEMA?
our new. So we have 5 hot rods in booths, and then probably 10 lifted trucks that we've done this past year. We've got 2 to finish up, and we got 2 hot rods to finish. Most of the other ones are done, thankfully. So both the hot rods look like they're going pretty well, and then we obviously have a really big one we're doing with you guys for Miss Justine Wolf. So yeah, it's going to be a crazy finish all the way to the end. But I don't think we'd have it any other way.
So I can see
tell
why
everybody
now you have no hair.
I don't think we would do it if we didn't love it.
Oh,
I do have
exactly.
any hair.
It
I'm
is
bald.
so much fun. SEMA is my favorite show in the world, and if none of you guys have got a chance to go to SEMA, definitely try to figure out a way to get there, because it is the biggest car show on the planet. And I joke about this, and Chris, you've been to SEMA, obviously. I used to joke about the fact that there are so many $1,000,000 cars, you trip over them and you don't even know it. And I used to say that as a joke, but literally I was in the South building downstairs. I forgot if it was the Pirelli booth or what booth it was, but the car that was in the middle, and I can't even remember the name of it, it's like one of 6. It was $4.3 million starting price. That's before you put any options on it. Bordered by McLarens on each side, $1.5 million McLarens on each side of it. People were complaining the McLarens were in their way. They couldn't get a good picture of the other car. So that was a joke, but it's kind of a reality, actually. It's crazy. So a lot of fun. So what else has happened in the world of MTI?
Yeah,
You
it's
guys got
definitely
some great enclosures.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had just launched 2 new Instagram pages. So we launched. We wanted to go through and separate both of our divisions out. Obviously, we have 3 huge divisions here at the company, and it became a point to where the hot rod side and the box manufacturing side started to kind of clutter each other up. So we decided to launch two separate Instagram pages for it, and that's kind of one of the big things we wanted to talk about. We're going to we have at MTI Acoustics is one of the new pages, and that's for all the box, custom box manufacturing, A-pillar, installation design parts for all the late model trucks. And yeah, so that way a lot of the guys that go looking for some of the hot rod stuff we do and custom interior stuff, they don't have to filter through. So, everyone head over there and give that a follow. And then obviously we have at MTI Automotive Designs, which is going to be just for all the hot rod interiors, which we are slowly but surely porting over all the interior work that we do on that.
Nice.
Part of what SEMA does for us is as a building interiors. So yeah, it's just been a crazy run here, especially on this run up to SEMA.
Yeah, something else, since I got you on here, and, I was looking through this earlier, I'm going to have Ernie pull this page back up again. This is one of the installs that you guys did. Of course, one of your incredible enclosures, and you guys just do such amazing work. Of course, that's in this Ford. But what I wanted to do, and it went right past it, if you guys out there don't know this, not only does MTI make some of the coolest, most badass enclosures out there, you know, any different level you want, but Chris, tell them what this is on the back wall of this truck with the, of course, the Kicker CX amp. What is that piece of plastic there?
Hey, John, we just lost it.
Oh, apparently we lost Chris. So, yep, I was leading him into a question. MTI also makes some really cool amplifier mounting plates. They make block-offs for door panels. Once again, you want to isolate the front of the speaker from the back of the speaker. A lot of doors have access windows. They make some great, you know, blocks to, you know, block off the door panels. So not only do they do incredible interiors and, you know, some of the best subwoofer boxes, they got some really cool installation parts. So make sure you check out, you know, their Facebook page, their Instagram page, and once again, they just launched the new Instagram page, which I've got pulled up right here. That's MTI at MTI Acoustics, or MTI Acoustics at MTI Acoustics. So check those guys out. And once again, it's always a pleasure to Chris on the show. And I'm really looking forward to seeing his vehicles at SEMA. I can't even imagine that many vehicles, you know, being at the show at one time. I mean, I think we've worked on 2 or 3 at one time here at Kicker, and I thought that was going to kill us. Of course, we're trying to do it all in the last 2 months of the whole year. But great show if you get a chance. So there's a lot of good events. Obviously, we're going to the SEMA show. We're going to bring that up when we start talking about events. So if we pull up the Kicker Facebook page, which once again, we've got a great Facebook page and it's changing daily. Bill Frog does a great job with this. And it looks like I'm frozen too. So I don't know if you guys can still hear me or not, but it still looks like me with my earbud in. So I'm going to take that out. Looks like we kind of got Chris back there.
I'm not. If
So
it's
a little
not
bit
on
of
a
technical
machine,
difficulty.
if it's not on a machine, I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, whatever.
If you need me to run a CNC or a laser, I got you. But if it's anything other than that, there's a good chance I'm going to mess it up. It's solid chance.
You're overly modest. Like I say, you know, the years I've seen, you know, your work and been down there to see the store. You guys just do incredible work and always have and always will. And sorry we had a little bit of audio difficulty there, but I was telling the guys, you know, in that picture that was, you know, an amplifier mounting plate, and I was telling them about, you know, your door panel blocking plates, which, you know, are just, you got some really cool features that, you know, you're doing on the CNCs. And I missed the whole CNC thing, you know, growing up, you know, when I started doing installs 40 years ago, we didn't have all that cool stuff. And I've been out of it so long. I haven't been actively in a bay since 1992 when I started working for Kenwood. So I'm out of touch with the cool technology. I just get to look at the cool pictures that you guys put out. And that is one of the cool things about Facebook and Instagram and Twitter is, you know, I almost think it's really boosted the high-end installs because guys are out there competing against each other to try to have the coolest thing on the internet. So it's great for the industry. And you guys are always right in the mix right there at the top. So congratulations on all that.
Well, we've got good people, and you know, I think that is correct. The internet definitely has. I don't know that it's. I mean, maybe it is a competition. I don't know, but I really do feel like it's definitely allowed a larger audience to share ideas back and forth, and you can see that in the way people build and the things that people come up with. You know, that they feed off each other, and that's good because back in the day when, you know, 28 years ago when we started, you know, you didn't have all that stuff. And so it was just the people around you and the people you worked with and the stuff you saw in magazines, you know, so,
and
you
the
know,
build books, if you happen to go to a show.
Exactly.
And took the time to do one of those.
You know, and so that it's definitely a big thing. And I think sound quality has become paramount now more than anything else. Knowing how to tune processors, how to correctly set up amplifiers, and I mean, sound quality is it, and it's been exciting to see it come back, and what we've built everything that we do around sound quality. And you know, I mean, yeah, we've won a bunch of championships and we've built a lot of cool cars over the years, but at the end of the day, whether you're doing a $5,000 system, $2,000 system, or $100,000 system, the goal is to make it sound as badass as you can, and to really create a fantastic stage and image with height, width, depth, and great tonality. So
And like we've always said, the whole point of a car audio system is to make the car disappear. So
Absolutely.
that's what you do with tuning. You want to be sitting there reminded you're sitting in a vehicle. You want to picture yourself at that concert. So absolutely
more people need to sit through what you just talked about for the last 30, 45 minutes. It would.
Were you watching some of that?
I did. I sat down and watched it. So more guys need to sit down and take 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and watch that. It helped them out a lot.
Yeah, and not only that, not only watching, but experiment. Don't just pull an amplifier out of the box, and I've seen this so many times. I mean, I've been to stores where you go in and it's like, well, this amplifier, it doesn't have as much output as this other one, but it's rated more power. And you look at it, it's like you didn't even touch the gain. You haven't even set anything up. Everything's still set the way it was in the box. So it takes a little bit of setup. I mean, car audio is a custom, install. I mean, it's, speakers, obviously, you take them out, put them in the box, but speaker placement is important. All the things you do around the speaker, the damping to the door, the blocking off of the plates, all that has great effect. And, you can take a marginal pair of speakers with a good install and good tuning. They can sound fantastic. So.
Yeah, I remember many years ago when Wilson Adcock he was really first sat me down and he gave me Vance Dickinson's book, Loudspeaker Design Cookbook, and he told me, and he said, here, I want you to take this dual wizard cone, and here's some crossover components. I want you to follow these instructions, and we're going to see just how good you can make this dual wizard cone factory speaker sound. And it was amazing by doing just a little bit of work what you could get out of it, by manipulating, what the amplifier did, what the crossover components did in front of the driver, and I mean, people just don't understand that there is a lot of time and experimentation that goes into it. So,
and it almost became a
little bit of
lost
research
art
goes a long way. It has.
And we talked about in the past that there's good enough. Hey, it sounds good enough. But if you don't know how good it can really sound, and that's why we always stress, it doesn't matter how good your system is. You got to have a good source. You got to have good uncompressed music. I mean. Forget the Bluetooth, forget the MP3s. If you want to hear a good system, you got to have garbage in, garbage out. I mean, so use good sources.
That's very accurate. You got to have good high-res music.
Yep. So Jimmy Lewis is asking, any A-pillars for the E60 BMWs?
I am 99% sure our guys can do them. We would have to have one in and scan. We do mostly late model trucks and some of the Hondas and obviously all the Toyotas and Nissans. I am sure that we could do a set. We would just have to have one in and scan it. So shoot, if it's a newer model, it's nothing for me to go down to the local dealership and get one because I'm friends with those guys. But it just depends on what year it is.
Take a laser scanner out there.
All we have to do is take the laptop and the scanner out there, put some dots on it, scan it, and we have the information. So
it's so amazing, that technology. I'm just so jealous that I don't get to use it.
It is absolutely astounding what you can do with a little bit of time, effort, and technology these days. So
cool. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming out. I think these guys are probably chomping at the bit to see who's going to win something
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of these guys have been around here for a while. But as always, keep up the good work. We'll look forward to seeing you at the show. If you get a chance, come by the booth.
We will.
Obviously, we're going to have our Bronco will be there. So we've got a lot of fun things going on there. And as always, keep up the good work. And I'll be down in Texas again before too much longer. Come down to see you, and I probably owe you lunch or dinner or something.
We'll go get some barbecue somewhere.
That works. I can always do barbecue. So thanks again, Christopher. Have a great night. And we'll see you out and about, and keep up with all the good work. Thanks for rolling the pictures in.
Thanks, fellas. Y'all take care.
All right. So appreciate Christopher dropping in. Like I say, you never know who's going to drop in, and that was like we said, Aaron Hagar dropped in, out of the blue. So it's cool to have guests both here in the studio and via satellite or internet or link or however the feed gets to you. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, we've got a lot of cool events coming up. If you go to our Facebook page, which Ernie will pull up on the screen for you right now, and you click on that little More tab that you see right in the middle, and scroll down, you're going to see all the events. And, we've got a lot of Bass Wars coming up. We've got Bass Wars in Kansas City. We've got Lafayette. We've got Montgomery, Alabama. And don't forget the DB Drag Finals are going on this weekend. So unfortunately, we're not going to be heading out to that. We're getting ready for SEMA ourselves. But if you want to know where we're at and what's going on, in the area, within a couple weeks from the date you look, Enduro Cross, Extreme Off-Road Racing. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, so feel free to check that out on the feed. And as always, we've got some cool stuff on our Instagram page, thanks to Mr. Bill Frog. In fact, I was going to feature one of them right here, this one that kicks off. I got to thank the guys, all you guys from all over the world that watch in, from South Africa. In fact, this install's from Durban, from Australia, Canada, the UK, Asia, all over. Thanks you guys for tuning in. And, Car Audio is not, discriminating as, continent. As you can see, these guys down in South Africa, they do some amazing installs, and that's why I wanted to show you some pictures of this great little install. And it's got the wonderful KX amplifiers, which we just showed you how to tune. But this is a cool little VW Golf and just a clean, gorgeous, simple install. But everything is just so meticulously dialed in and just great accents through the entire vehicle. So thank you guys for sending those pictures in. And speaking of pictures, as we mentioned, we're going to SEMA here in 3 weeks, I think it is. We've got a vehicle we're taking down there, and we kind of showed you a little preview, a little concept drawing. Are we going to show this to them, Ernie? What do you think? Should we bring up these pictures? All right, Ernie's saying he thinks we can go ahead and let these pictures out. So, all right, Ernie, go ahead and pull up the first one. Yeah, we already know what that is. That we just got done doing that. So he's doing the finger tap dance on the keyboard back there. Yes. As we mentioned, in the past, we've got a Bronco build going on. And Chase, our little helper in the shop, you can see Josh has actually welded up a nice cage for him. Nope, that's actually Chase inside the box there. That framework is going to be the structure for the enclosure. It's actually 1.5 inches thick of wood on the inside of that 1 by 2 inch steel welded up cage. So rigidity is the key to SPL and sound quality, and we're hoping that's going to be enough. Because I think we got another picture, a fairly recent picture that we probably should show you guys. And yes, there is a pallet of Solo X woofers. Now don't get excited, guys. These are the pre-production samples that are going in the Bronco for the show. They are functioning woofers. It will work, but these are not the mass production woofers. So if you have these speakers on order, they are coming. There is proof that, there's 12 of them right there, I think. Yeah, 12 of those woofers right there. And 4 spares sitting on top. So it's just about time to get those things out and about and rolling. So thanks, guys, for being patient on those. But, we want to make sure those woofers are absolutely perfect when they come out. And, and as Steve Irby said, there is going to be an 18. So 10, 12, 15, and 18. So great speaker sizes. So that's going to go up to the next thing. And I'm going to go ahead and show some other pictures here. Take me a minute to get to this, Ernie, so you don't need to pull it up just yet. I got to remember where I put those pictures because we've got all kinds of cool stuff to talk about tonight. Unmasked, 927. So let's go to some cool installs. And we saw the great install on the Instagram page. Here's another, cool looking install. And I really like, the way they've done the little, accents on the sides and used, the various combinations of materials. Just, the creativity is astounding that you guys have, and, the more the merrier on some of these. So great looking install. Here it is all lit up, and that was done by Audio Pros, and the picture you saw previously was the non-lit version, but, a good amount of backlighting, it always attracts a little bit more attention. So a little bit more over the top, and this is a little bit older gear, but still a really cool install. This looks like I think it looks like a Gator, Kawasaki Gator. And here again, you've got 6 12-inch woofers, actually, and looks like a couple 10s down lower. There's a lot of gear in this thing, so this ought to, definitely thump down the road. But it's a store demo vehicle, but once again, a lot of creativity and a lot of work went into that. And it's all about having fun and doing something different. This is a really cool install because this showcases the fact that the CXA amplifiers will mount vertically. So all the CXA come with the feet, they'll mount both horizontal and vertical. And the kicker logos you see in the back are on the TRTP enclosures. This is really cool because they stack the enclosures on top of each other. So yes, you can do that. They don't have to just lay flat on the floor. You can pile them up, stuff as many as you can in the trunk. I think that should be our next challenge. How many TRTPs can you put in the trunk of a vehicle, and what SPL can you get about it? So guys, I'm ready for some pictures to see what you're gonna do with that one. Let's have some fun with it. So some really cool installs. And not only do we have cool installs, we got to go back and we got to go into our next thing, which I used to call it fails. And there's been so many. I mean, how many times can you see wires hanging out of a dash? So there's other fields that fail too. So we want to go ahead and give them a chance to be seen and be heard. It's something I call "you had one job." So here's some fails from other industries, and a lot of these are in the construction industry. So Ernie, if you go ahead and pull that one up, I'm curious on this garage door, since it's on the second level, is this for your jet fighter, your remote control planes? Yeah, why would you put a garage door in the second level? Definitely a fail on that one. Always test your work. Yeah, not only is this a fail in carpentry, but even with car audio, make sure everything functions before you finish the job. Just a little, simple little checking that out and flipping the handle over would have made a big difference. And I like this one, you had one job. And I know we've all seen this one before, something similar. Yeah, they didn't quite get the cheese on the sandwich in the proper place. They just kind of threw it in the box with it. Yeah, that person basically decided, I don't want this job anymore and I don't care. Here's a couple other things. Talking about, testing your work. Make sure everything's functional. You got a faucet that, drains right on the edge of the sink and a door that doesn't work in a bathroom. How about just simple grammar? Paying attention. School-free drug zone. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of those out there, unfortunately. But just a lot of fun. And like I say, we hope that, you guys have some fun with these things. And it almost seems like I'm stalling, that I don't want to give away anything, and we're just about to that point, but we got to do one final segment before we close this up for the night. And that is, we got to do our readers' questions, or, the submitted questions that we have. And the first one that we have says, I just put in 2 new Kicker 12-inch woofers, and now I don't have any bass, but the speakers seem to be moving a lot. How is this possible? Well, it probably is due to the fact that the speakers are wired out of phase. So one way you can test this is to disconnect one speaker or turn your balance left or right. If you get more bass response, that means the speakers are moving opposite directions. So you need to reverse the polarity of one to get them moving in the same direction. So that could be a very simple one, and hopefully it's something you can do on the outside of the enclosure if it's pre-wired. But once again, check your polarity on the speakers. That'll make a huge difference. Question number 2. When I turn up my system, the amp turns off. Do I need to send it back? It's new. I don't know what's wrong. First thing we need to know, we need a little bit more information to diagnose that problem. Does it turn off immediately when you start turning up at low volumes? Does it only turn off when the bass hits really hard? Which that's generally an indication of a speaker wired, too low of an impedance. Like you got it wired to 1 ohm low and the amp's 4 ohm stable. Or it can also be a shorted speaker wire somewhere, where it doesn't have enough voltage to arc across at low powers, but at high powers it does. Something else to think about, if the amplifier plays for a long period of time and then shuts off, but doesn't come back on right away because the short circuit protection and the low impedance, if you turn the volume down, the amplifier will come back on and work. I mean, that's what the protection circuit's there for, to make sure the amplifier doesn't blow up. But if the amplifier takes a while to come back on, it's probably a thermal issue. The hardest one to figure out is going to be low voltage. And that's where you're going to need to put some type of device. And here again, the SMD meters will measure, voltage drop. You may have an amplifier that's dropping too low in voltage. These KXA amplifiers that we have up here, these will shut off below 10.5 volts. We do that to protect the circuitry inside because at low voltage, high current, they tend to take out power supplies. So we want to protect the equipment to make sure that it's going to operate. When you get into the CXA amplifiers, they'll operate down to 9.5 volts. But if you get to 10.5 or lower, what you're going to see is the protection and the power light will both be on at the same time. So that's going to tell you I have a low voltage situation, which is one of the harder ones to diagnose because it may mimic the short circuit or the low impedance because it may only shut off when you really get a strong bass note. So great questions. Just need a little bit more information. So no, you don't need to send it back right now. Call our guys on the tech line, 1-800-256-0808. Ask for customer service. They'll be happy to help you out. Third and final question. Looks like another box question. I have a box that has two 12-inch woofers in it. I want to add some 8s for mid-bass. What woofer do you recommend to put in the box with them? And the answer is none. You never want to cut holes and put more speakers into an enclosure that's already built. You also, may have a problem with, sharing the airspace. A smaller speaker in the airspace with a bigger speaker, the bigger speakers can overpower the small one, and it can cause some really ugly things. But if you have the ability to enclose that 8-inch speaker and make its own enclosure within the box, that's okay. Now for mid-bass, I recommend a lot of power and usually half the minimum recommended sealed box for a subwoofer. So if you have an 8-inch speaker that its minimum sealed box is a half a cubic foot for a subwoofer, you can go ahead and cut that down to a 1/4 cubic foot for mid-bass because you want the tight stiffness, you want less air in the box for compression so you get a tighter, snappier mid-bass, and the speaker doesn't move as far because a higher frequency doesn't cause the cone to move as far. So always make sure you separate the woofers in the chambers and never just keep adding speakers to enclosures. I do see this a lot or have in the past, and it's never a good thing. So don't do that. I guess time to give some stuff away. Something else, talking about last week's show, with Wayne and Bart, I really wish I could have been on that, but, I really had fun fishing too. So it's kind of, what do you do? But I was kind of bummed I wasn't able to do the show with Wayne because Wayne is just a super guy and he talked about a wealth of information. He kind of alluded to something, during that show 2 weeks ago, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up a contest. We're going to give away 3 full Term Pro programs for calculating speaker enclosures. So we decided to put together a little giveaway, and once a month we're going to give away a full Term Pro package. So that's all the software you need, which will work on your computer. Wayne will give you all the information on how to download it and set it up. So make sure you register for that. And I forgot what the actual bill, I think you did put there. Yeah, it's kicker.com/giveaway, not UM Weekly, but just giveaway. And that's how you enter to win the Term Pro, one of 3 programs we're going to give away. That kind of brings us down to the last one, the 3 winners for tonight. So 3rd place, let's get right to it since we're pushing that 9 o'clock hour. And I think Bill and I have a adult beverage to catch up to, and maybe we'll drag Amir out there and see if he'll go with us. So that's an invitation, by the way, Amir. So he's smiling like, yeah, we're right. It is. So 3rd prize winner is going to be Lance D. from New York. So Lance, watch for an email from Bill Frog. We're going to want to know your t-shirt size, obviously, your phone number, your address. And once again, thank you guys for playing, and keep watching for those emails. And don't forget, the phone number is important even with the shipping address because they have to have phone numbers nowadays. 2nd prize winner, which is going to get the Tabor headphones, which are the Bluetooth headphones, the Kicker koozie, and the Gray Kicker t-shirt, which the Gray Kicker t-shirt's behind me back there, and it looks like we're having little signal problems today, too, on our own. I don't know what's up with that. You'd think they get this internet thing figured out. So I know it's not our end, because Ernie's got the best gear you can possibly get. 2nd prize, Josh S. from Alaska. Fantastic. I'm glad you guys are watching up there, and, I've been to Alaska. I was in Alaska for 20 hours. And that is a crime. And I know it's right around the Iditarod, and I know exactly when it was because it was on my birthday. I flew into Alaska at, when was that? I flew into Alaska, it was like 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, did a training at 6 o'clock. I left at noon on Sunday. So I did not get enough, time to really, enjoy it, but it was beautiful up there. And, it's such a neat country. And it was really fun flying in, over the mountains and looking at the landscape. So, grand prize winner for tonight, as I keep rambling. Sorry about that, guys. So who is going to be the grand prize winner, which is going to win the Cush NC headphones? They're going to win the t-shirt and the koozie. And that is going to be, drum roll please, Bill, Number 1 is going to be Mel G from Texas. So Mel G from Texas, watch for an email from Bill Frog, and you're going to get one of the last runs of the Cush NC headphones, and which is sad. I wish we could get the parts to make more, but yeah, this world has changed. It's very frustrating. And of course, you're going to get the t-shirt and the koozie. We need t-shirt size, we need shipping address, we need phone number. And as always, thank you guys. If you guys, once again, have any questions, support@kicker.com. Any show suggestions, anything you guys want to see. I got to thank my great crew for hanging out tonight. Amir, Ernie, Bill, and JW back there. We have a lot of fun doing this, and we're going to continue to keep doing it. We will be back here again in 2 weeks, and by gosh, I don't even sure what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks, but we'll figure it out, and I'm sure we're going to let you know. So that being said, join us back here 2 weeks, 7:30 Central Time, right here on the Kicker Facebook and YouTube channel. Join us again, and let's have some fun, and let's keep this crazy thing going called Car Audio. And thanks again for joining in and talking about all the cool stuff they do. Go check out their new Instagram page. They've got some great stuff. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night, and do not forget to tune in to Living Loud with Andy. Andy, thank you for doing everything you do, and make sure you guys stick around. Andy's going to do a recap, and it's a lot of fun. And looking forward to hearing what he's got to say about tonight's show. So thanks, guys. Take care. We're out. Have a good one.